You know I love that violence that you get around here, that kind of pretty steady violence. That violent, how do you do? The lie when Freddy was sleeping upon food.
Grian Chatten is the 24-year-old frontman of Fontaines DC, a band that bonded as much over poetry as music, possessing from the start an overwhelming desire to express themselves with passion and authenticity. It's only a few short years since that first self-released single, Liberty Bell, but already on the back of the album Doggerel and literally hundreds of dates around Europe and the US, Fontaines DC are one of the most talked about bands around. I met up with Grian at his family home in Skerries in North County Dublin.
Grian, how are you, John? How are you getting on?
Just like me, just like you, man is on the nod, yeah, what you gonna do about it?
What's your dad called again, Grian, before I forget?
What's what?
What's your dad called again?
Oh, Connor.
Connor.
They said, what's my band called again? I was like, Jesus Christ.
That's a great start, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, there's a liberating.
Your actual story sounds like it could have been made up by American PR people.
Yeah.
Bunch of Dublin lads, they're all into poetry, they sing ballads, they hang around the pub.
Yeah.
You know, but it was true in your case.
Yeah, it was, yeah. You know, like, it becomes more and more absurd sounding to me, you know, the more interviews I do and I have to
You
talk
mentioned
about
James
stuff
Joyce
like
and
that
Yeats
beginning.
and so on, yeah.
James Joyce and Yeats and Guinness this and, you know, channeling this poet and stuff like that. There'd be very little that I'd read and not think I could do that, you know. When I was younger, you know, I really had that level of, you know, self-belief. That really excited me, and I never really shared that with anyone because it sounds monstrously egotistical, and it is, you know, to some extent, but I was aware of the fact that that didn't matter for now, you know, whether or not it was, you know, delusional.
Some writers might read James Joyce and think there's no point in me trying to do anything.
I mean, I think he's probably the best of all time, you know what I mean? And I think it's okay to not be as good as James Joyce, you know?
Grian, we're out here in Skerries. What's the relationship in your head between Skerries and Dublin, and when you're growing up here? I mean, are you remote from the city? Do you feel like you're part of it? How does that work?
Yeah, it feels like it's a self-sufficient sort of place, you know what I mean? Like, it's a beautiful sort of escape from the city. So I grew up always kind of, you know, getting the train into town and being engulfed by the city and then coming back and just sort of coming back into the bosom of Skerries, you know what I mean? And then I moved into town when I was about 17, you know, I was one of those people who moved out about 4 times, you know what I mean? And then I only moved back 3 times, you know?
Yeah. There's nothing unique about being a young fella living at home at the moment in Dublin. Many young people are and have no choice in the matter. You're content to be here, if you know what I mean. This really is your comfortable spot.
It's a nice setup, you know? Like, our family's got our issues like every other family, but yeah, it's good.
Would you call this a musical household?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, you know, a household with the remnants of musicality, like, you know what I mean? It's like, my mum and dad met, there's a picture of them over there. They were in 2 separate Irish traditional sort of cover bands in Hanover, Germany. That's how they met. So I think, you know, that was part of the reason that music was always in my household, because it was important, you know, and fundamental to their relationship, you know.
And was there music in the house apart from on record? I mean, would your mum and dad have been playing music in the house, playing for you, singing with you as kids and all of that?
My dad would, yeah. I think my mum sort of became very shy, sort of about her singing, you know. But actually, around New Year's Eve, we went to the west of Ireland, where a lot of my family are from, in Leenane, you know, the border between Mayo and Galway. And we all had a few drinks, and everyone kind of, you know, came out of the woodwork then. And I remember she sort of attempted to sing Troy by Sinead O'Connor, and it's one of the most affecting experiences of my entire life. You know what I mean? You don't have to be an amazing singer; you just have to really go for it. Like, and she did. You know, it was amazing.
That's a very cool mom, singing Sinead songs.
Yeah, attempted to at least, which is even cooler, I suppose. You know.
Would you be shy singing in front of your parents to this day?
No, not really, because I would have used them as a soundboard a lot of the time, you know, when I was growing up. You know, the first thing I used to do if I'd made a demo on the laptop or even just kind of come up with a chord progression or something like that would be to show my mum. And then because it was my dad that got me into poetry and lyricism when I was very young, I used to bounce words off him, and he'd always kind of respond by saying, you know, what's the point in it unless it's sort of like complete or if it's contextualized, you know what I mean? Because I used to kind of like run around looking for validation on one line. I'm glad that he sort of pushed me to expand on it, you know what I mean? And every time I learned the poem off by heart, he'd buy me a pack of football stickers. So I started learning loads of poetry, and it was just very, very simple. To kind of, if there was enough of a device in it, then it was easy to hang on to, you know. And then yeah, I've filled up the whole sticker book.
And do you think, without making too much of that particular system, that really did stand to you in terms of getting notions of rhythm and all that into your body?
Yeah. I mean, the one that I have the sort of strongest memory of is, I think it's called Carriageways by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I remember kind of realising that the rhythm of the sentences was to kind of sort of suggest the rhythm of the train's wheels, you know what I mean? That kind of as soon as I kind of made that connection, it all sort of started to open up for me, you know what I mean? And I was able to make my own interpretation. And it was the fact that it was almost like self-education, you know what I mean? And it was in my own hands, and that's the gift that really should be sort of given to kids who are studying poetry in school, you know, because it's unfair to expect them to enjoy and internalise and get, you know, become engaged with somebody else's interpretation. I spent my whole sort of school life thinking that I was really stupid, like, you know, and it wasn't. Yeah, because it wasn't designed for someone like me, you know. And it was only when I left school and I started really sort of self-educating that I, you know, started having a bit of faith in myself, you know.
And in terms when you left school, was third level something you were thinking about? Was there something you wanted to do apart from?
I had computer science down as my first option on the CAO, and I was at my my granny's 60th birthday, and her best friend Betty came over to me and asked if I'd made my choice, and I said I was thinking about doing computer science, and she looked at me with very kind of, you know, like a very deep expression, and she said, I don't think it's you, you know, and that sort of blew me back.
So really the only thing that's kind of unique about your musical background is that your parents, instead of blindly encouraging you, they might hold you up and say, wait a minute, you need to do this a bit better, or give you a little guidance, actually.
Yeah. I mean, my ma could never do anything other than sort of, I mean, you know, I'd ask her if she liked a tune, and she'd be like, I liked the one last week, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily about sort of telling someone like what they're good at. It's about narrowing their mode of expression so that it kind of becomes sharp and incisive, and can therefore make sort of deeper cuts, you know. They made me feel comfortable about the fact that I wasn't a good singer, do you know what I mean? I became comfortable with the idea that my talents sort of lay elsewhere, you know, in lyric writing and arrangement, musical arrangement, you know.
Why did you go to BIM? What was BIM likely to provide, do you think? Because it conjures up notions of, I don't know, a stage school or fame or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Which is not kind of rock and roll.
I didn't do particularly well in my leaving cert like that, and I saw that this was based off an audition, you know, where you'd have to show the songs you'd written. And I thought that I'd written good songs, but I wasn't very good at like theory or anything like that, you know what I mean? So I thought at least there was a chance that I could get into this music college, and once I get into that, there'll be further justification for me pursuing music in some way, you know what I mean? So it was kind of just about doing something in music, you know? It was good as a sort of like a microcosm of what was going on. What everyone else was writing and playing around me at that time was indicative of the music that was being made in the world, what was hip and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And I think it was quite a natural reaction for me and for the other lads in the band to just go against that, you know?
I will sail to the waves while you are fresh from a confession. The angry streets they twisted up and fill out with the laughter.
And who were the people in the background that you had discovered? I mean, who were the people that you could point at and think, right, those guys, I like what they do?
I'd have to say mostly it was the other lads in the band, you know. It was like Diego, the lad who plays bass in the band. He had a massive amount of knowledge about, you know, music that I'd never really listened to, you know. Like he kind of gone through phases that I hadn't yet. He spoke about it with such sort of intensity. We just hang out and swap, you know, bands and poetry.
But it was coming from yourselves as opposed to, you know, for a lot of bands, it's, you know, they hear the Beatles and that's what leads them in that direction, or they've got a Bowie figure somewhere in the background. You know, there was no one like that was sort of the example you were following?
Well, Shane MacGowan was always like that for me, you know. I loved his lyrical style, from sort of like a wit to wisdom, you know what I mean? And I was really excited by how sort of flagrant some of his early lyrics were, and then how eventually they became really succinct and concise, and they were like, they had a great sense of Irishness, but also like obviously a massive punk element to them, you know. But we just wanted to be the Pogues, you know what I mean, when we were starting off. We wanted to be the Dubliners and the Pogues, and we wanted to drink a load of Guinness and put our arms around each other and sing Irish tunes, and there was no one around us that you know, that were doing that at the time.
A dilettante is someone who can't tell the difference between fashion and style. Charisma is exquisite manipulation, and money is the sampling of the soul. Money.
Was there ever any question that you wouldn't be the lead singer? Were you always going to be the front man of the group?
No. It was the decision for me to be the front man was a conscious kind of decision to have an element of cohesion. Well, for our first record, really, because all the lads are really, really gifted songwriters and lyricists, you know, but it was just that we wanted to be able to explore a variety of sounds and sort of service each song. We didn't want to be a sound band, we wanted to be a song band, you know.
You're not alive until you start kicking, when the room is spinning and the words aren't sticking.
You know, you're not an extrovert.
No, I don't think so.
I wouldn't think.
I'm very nervous now.
No, you're all right, don't worry. You're in safe hands. But there are a lot of singers and performers and actors who aren't extroverts either. So, did you have any resistance within yourself about being the person who goes out front to deliver this stuff?
To be honest, like, the first time I got up on stage and without a guitar, you know what I mean, and kind of felt that scrutiny, I felt really proud, and I felt like I did it really well. It was just that, you know, the sort of attention that inevitably falls upon the frontman, all that kind of stuff really freaks me out, you know, and I'm really uncomfortable with it, you know, and I'll really go out of my way to not have to sort of, I don't know, talk to people who are big fans of the band after a gig sometimes, you know. The one thing that I was confident in was my ability to sort of represent myself fairly well, you know what I mean, and that I had a well-developed sense of character, a voice that was perhaps a little bit more refined than the other lads, you know. I don't mean like a singing voice, you know, I mean a writing voice. There's nothing refined about my singing voice, you know.
If you're a rock star, porn star, superstar, doesn't matter what you are, get yourself a good car, get out of here.
Let me ask you about singing in your own accent. A lot of people don't do that. Can you imagine your songs being sung in any other accent, in any other way? Because the rhythm and the sound of them seems so linked to what you do.
I was aware that I wasn't a good singer, you know, technically, and I wanted to be sort of as honest about who I was as possible, and for that to, you know, potentially appeal to people is all I can give, it's all I can do, you know.
Could we give an example, say, of how a song might have come about? You know, Dublin in the Rain, you know, I can hear that as a poem. It's very rhythmic, it rhymes, it's all the rest of it.
So I came up with the notion of it, you know. I came up with that line, and that line was the song, you know what I mean, to me. I didn't, as soon as I had that line, I wasn't worried about what the rest of the song was going to be like lyrically, like, you know what I mean? Because I felt like it was all written. It was all just about, it was like locating that aspect of myself, or like that idea or that feeling, and then just making sure that I sort of bring it out in one piece, you know what I mean? It wasn't writing, it was kind of revealing, you know? I knew that I wanted the music for that tune to be really fundamental in order to not kind of distract from the focus of the character, you know, with all their ambition, like Dublin in the Rain is mine. So I wanted it to be like kind of linear, you know what I mean, almost, and just be like doof, doof, doof. And I just said to Digo, try to write something like you've been hitting the head with a brick, and he just went do, 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 and that was it.
Dublin in the rain is mine, a pregnant city with a Catholic mind. Starts those sheets for the birdhouse jail, or mescaline when the past is stale. Pale, Dublin in the rain is mine, a pregnant city with a Catholic mind. Slick little boy with a mind of Ritz, pulling that thread for the next big fix. This, my childhood was small, my childhood was small, but I'm gonna be big. But I'm gonna be big. My childhood was small. My childhood was small. But I'm gonna be big. But I'm gonna be big. But I'm gonna be big. Well, Dublin in the rain is mine.
You said character there, right? Are you assuming a character, or indeed numerous characters?
It sounds cliche to say, but I think that there are a lot of characters that we assume day to day. Every song has me in it, like, you know, my childhood was small, but I'm going to be big. I've experienced that in one way or another. I've experienced that feeling, you know.
My childhood was small. My childhood was...
Some of it, you've been listening to the Beach Boys.
Yeah. Probably my favourite band in the world.
You've moved away from writing about Dublin, you know? Maybe not completely, but
Yeah.
in the songs that I've heard from the new record.
Yeah.
And do you have any concerns about moving away from the stuff that you know you can write about, if you know what I mean?
How could I write about Dublin? I've moved away from Dublin. That's why I've moved away from writing about it. You know what I mean? I've barely been here. I've barely set foot here in the last year and a half. You know, I don't have licence anymore, in my view, to describe the streets of Dublin. You know, because every time I come back to Dublin, the streets look completely fucking different. You know.
So it's a tricky one.
Well, we did. I mean, we honestly didn't find it tricky to write our second album, because our second album was written completely out of love for writing with my hands all the time, and that's just like sort of, I'm just trying to let some energy out, and I'm not even aware of it, you know. Especially with the drink, I feel like we've sort of we've written a very boozy world with that first album, and it feels like to us it kind of makes sense to for all that stuff to go along with it, you know, and it won't be like that forever, you know.
Yeah, but you'll also know that, you know, the story, again, your creation story about, you know, Kavanagh and Behan and McDade's and all the pubs in Dublin and all the rest of it. These guys produce great work, and maybe they wouldn't have if they hadn't have done that. But you also can't help wondering what they would have achieved if they hadn't been spending so much time in McDade's, you know. Yeah,
for sure. But I think that for me anyway, for my style of writing, that kind of even being hungover uproots your thinking. If I ever go a long time without drinking, or sort of just being healthy, taking care of myself in general, I feel shut off, and it might just be in my head, but I feel shut off from certain corners of my imagination. I'm thinking with too much clarity. I like feeling a bit scatterbrained, because often very interesting ideas kind of creep into your head, you know.
But you also seem quite aware that you're not going to be like this forever.
It's a long road for us, you know, and we've a lot of gigs, and we can't possibly, you know, be getting pissed every night. The source of your creativity and your personality and your beliefs are all kind of like one and the same, you know, and you just have to protect yourself in order to protect your creativity, is what I'm trying to say, you know.
Brilliant, thanks a million.
Yeah, no bother, man. Son.
Cheers.
No one can pull the passion loose from youth's ungrateful hands as it stands about to make a lot of money. Gold hats in the pan. None can revolution lead with selfish needs aside. As I cried, I'm about to make a lot of money. Gold hats on the side. Is it too real for ya? Is it too real for ya? Is it too real for ya?